Hey, everybody. We are here 1 year later with my great friend, Jeremy Patterson from Fairway Mortgage in San Diego, California. Hey, Jeremy, how's it going today?
Hey guys, fantastic. Thanks for having me. I feel like it's messy at the end of the year.
Yeah, we're not in the middle. Well, we're kind of messy in the middle of the year.
That's right.
Technically.
That's
That's
right.
right. So Ed and I were chatting about loans, and we revisited a podcast we did a year ago with you, Jeremy, and we thought it would be really great now that the dust is slightly settled on our market to kind of get your viewpoint of what's happening. Because Ed and I really feel like, yes, we're involved in loans because our clients are involved in loans, but you're really, really, really in it. And I believe you have great information to share. We both did.
Sure do.
Actually.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So take it away. Let's hear what's going on, and we're gonna kind of freewheel this a little bit, right? Just like we're in a bar talking about loans.
Three
Yeah,
dudes
I think
talking.
it's better to do it this way too. I kind of like it. I do the same thing. So yeah, if we go back a year, it's been such an interesting time, right? When you look at the last 12 months and kind of go, okay, where do we expect to be? Where are we today? What does it look like? Like there's so many questions and concerns, and everybody has an idea of what's going to happen in the future. And I think one of the things the last year has really taught me is, man, we can definitely predict and we can think, but we ultimately don't really know. And all we can do is really focus on what's happening today, how we can best manage and suit our families, and how can we best serve people around us today,
Yep.
and give the very best advice today. Because I think that's one thing a year ago that I look back and go, man, a lot of people had predictions of what were going to happen to interest rates, which we all saw them rise and they went up, and we get that. But I think there's a lot of predictions out there about when rates are going to come down. And so that's part of it. I think also loan application volume, right? What it looked like a year ago compared to today is
Right.
completely different. Demand is different, listings is different. And I don't know if we expected listings. I think a year ago we might have talked about the locked-in effect and the fact it was going to be hard to sell properties, right, with really low interest rates. I don't know if we expected it to be quite this hard,
hmm
but it's been interesting. It's been an interesting 12 months.
Okay, so I have a direct question. A year ago, interest rates were really, really, really on the rise. We didn't
Yeah,
know kind of where they would cap out. What is the highest interest rate we've seen in the last 12 months?
7.5, 7.75,
Wow.
right? It
Okay.
kind of floated in there, and that was just because so there are so many things that happen that people don't know, right? Everybody sees the headlines about the Federal
Sure.
Reserve raising interest rates,
Yep.
and that was to calm inflation. Some of the things that people didn't recognize were the reality. Not only were they raising interest rates, but they stopped buying mortgage-backed securities. So what that means for us normal people is the
hmm
reality that if I'm going to make an investment, I'm going to invest in something, I don't want a 2.5% rate of return on that investment over a 30-year period.
Right.
hmm
Government didn't care. They kept buying that stuff. So not only were they buying that to keep the rates low, but then over the last year, they started pulling that back to where now they're not buying any of that. So it was a major shift, not only in interest rates for them raising them, but also a completely different change in buying those securities
Yeah.
too.
So it
Okay,
sounds
so
like the secondary market, just completely shifted. To,
It did. It went back to a more of a competitive market space where it's okay, who wants to buy these at what interest rate, which has been interesting because that's part of the inflation. If you look at the gap between the value and kind of bonds and where they're at, it's just because government's not buying them anymore. It really changed
wow.
things.
So the
okay.
biggest customer left the table,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
Yeah.
that's out. Go
And
ahead, Jeff.
so just in layman's terms, because we speak to a very wide audience,
Yep.
when you say stopped buying them, what are we talking about?
Mortgage-backed security. So when you
Okay.
take a 30-year fixed mortgage and you pull it together, it's a
Yes.
securitization. The
Okay.
government were buying those, and ultimately they stopped.
Yeah. Which causes interest rates to go up. And you were saying that 7.75 was the highest that we saw in the last 12 months.
Yep.
Where are we now today?
High sixes, low sevens, right? We're
Okay.
probably right around 7%, I'd say, to be safe.
Okay, great. And do you feel with the information that you have, this is kind of a holding pattern space where we'll be for the next 6 to 12 months? Like nothing's really going to shift and change? I mean, obviously you don't know, but just your gut
Yeah,
feeling.
of course. But I think it's interesting. So if you would have talked to me 3 months ago, I'm telling you, hey, rates will definitely come down faster.
Yeah.
But based on what we're seeing just in this last week, right, we got inflationary data that showed better than expected. So that means inflation's coming down.
Okay.
We typically, when we see that stuff, we expected there to be a turn on the bond market to really start to drive interest rates a little bit lower.
Right.
We just didn't see that. The market reacted positively, but it gave back the negative ground. So that meant that interest rates essentially stayed where they were. And that's not what we expected. We expected rates to start to kind of come down, and this being a good point of that. And I think what it's showing is that inflation is a bit stickier than everybody believes. And the movement in the bond market is going to put us probably in that middle sixes, low sixes range, I think, for the next 12 months.
Right.
Okay. Which is, sorry, Ed.
No,
I don't want to cut you off.
Well, the point there, and when you say the movement in the bond market, is that because of the spread that's required and to buy these mortgage-backed securities now that the government's left? Is that part of it?
I mean, that is definitely part of it. And it's the reality is investors still are spooked in the market space, right? They don't quite know what to do and where to go because they get conflicting data, right? They get the inflationary data, then you have Federal Reserve, which is likely to hold rates today. We'll see. By the time this comes out, we won't know. But they're likely not going to raise interest rates, but it doesn't mean they're going to stop forever. It just depends on what the next 30 days looks like. I kind of look at it like a teeter-totter, but instead of having two kids on a teeter-totter doing this, you've got the economy and data, and it jumps from side to side, and that teeter-totter does whomp, whomp, and you cannot, like just an elephant jumping from side to side and going, well, I guess this is what it's going to be today.
And so it's almost impossible to try and time that. You just have to go. When you find the house and the right home, you go with the rate you can get.
100%. You do the best you can, and I've heard all the sayings, marry the home, date the rate. You've heard refinance later. You've all that kind of stuff. And I think the reality of it is we have to accept that it's going to be what it is. And there's no better wealth building tool than home ownership. And it's harder than ever right now, but it's never been better. It's never been better. I would much rather have my clients have to deal with a higher interest rate and be able to get a home than go back 3 years and have to go $100,000 over asking and still not get a home. It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that point, the listings that I've had on in the last 6 months have had multiple offers. And when I'm saying multiple, I don't mean 2. I mean 7 to 20.
Yeah.
Depending on the location, and the price. But even my properties listed over $1 million have multiple offers on them. So there still is this feeling for buyers that not only are they paying a high interest rate, but they're in competition to buy these homes. I feel like we're in a stagnant space from my position because people don't want to move. And so we don't have enough inventory to level the market or level the playing field just a little bit. And trust me, I don't want people's values to go down. I have a home here as well. And Ed's getting ready to list his home tomorrow. So, I mean, we want the values to stay up. But when is that going to change? When is the mindset of somebody going to say, okay, I'm ready to sell my home. Now we have a little bit more inventory, which, by the way, when I looked today, we have less than a month's supply.
Oh, you're back down. Wow.
We're back down. So that creates a seller's market, even though we have high interest rates. So can you speak to that a little bit, Jeremy? I mean, I know that was a long-winded question.
Yeah, no, I love that because this is a conversation we're having all the time. I think in this market space, you really have to help people understand the value of selling to buy, right? Because they're going to have to give up the lower rate. And it's a mindset issue that the lower rate is better than everything else. Just like when people were trying to buy 3 years ago, I want to buy right now, the rate's lower, right? The whole thing. Now, the hard part is no matter how you look at this, if you sell your home and you're at 3% today and you buy the same home that you're selling at the current list price with updated property taxes and rates at 6.875%, you're paying $1,800 more a month here in San Diego because the home prices are so much higher. So to be very clear, if you look at what it was like 5 years ago, you would give up maybe $400 or $500 a month because you're buying the next home. Now you can't buy your same home for 18. So the issue is the jump is significant. And Jeff, when you talk about open houses and, all the demand that we're seeing. I was at one of those open houses with you, and we had 150 people through or something
Yeah.
ridiculous. And we're
It
like,
was
holy
ridiculous.
smokes,
Yeah.
what is going on? And that's the hardest thing. So my thought on interest rates to get people to kind of get loosened up to be able to sell it, I personally believe, and based on some of the data, if you just look at monthly payments, I think rates have to be in the fours to loosen people up because I think the data was something like over 50% of households have rates under 3 or under 4. Yeah. I think it's under 4. And there's another, 20 or 30% under 3. So when you look at that, you go, okay, how do we free that up? That's the only way. Rates got to get down in the 4s, and I don't know if we will see that or if we do see it when it.
Yeah, that'll probably be a ways out, I would think. And I think another thing's going on here is that we did have a period where rates were so low that people were excited to get in and get those rates, and I think we're getting back to a back to basics market, a non-aspirational market, more needs based, and people buy homes for life events. Things change and they move. And, if you got a job change coming, that, you probably need to move, right? So you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, think about this, Jefi. If you think about, or both of you for your clients, when's the last time or how many of your clients are sell to buy?
It's less than 25% right now. I mean, it was close to 50% when interest rates were low. Most of my needs to buys are, divorce, death, job transfer, job loss,
changing, moving, selling, rental, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And that's a really good indicator of the reality of what we're kind of going through as an industry. And those needs-based clients are where we should be focused on, which is, I think, some of the more difficult places to be focused because you're working with different types of people, divorce attorneys, financial planners, CPAs. Like those should be go-to revenue streams for every real estate agent. But most that I talk to don't have them. Yeah,
it's funny. I call it first-time buyers, last-time sellers. That's kind of where we are right now. And then you get a little in the middle, but it's but that's driving the market. It's the estate sales, the young buyers who are renting. They just got to get in, and it's a better financial move.
Another thing that will change this too is if current homeowners wind up refinancing and taking higher rates, right? That will change things as well. You're not talking for the next 12 or 24 months. You're talking 3 or 4 years out. But if you look at the amount of debt here in the U.S., it's gone up substantially. If you look at the savings rate, it's gone down substantially. So that tells us that America is overspending, not saving money. And they're going to have to do something because credit card rates are getting higher. Those payments are getting higher. So will they refinance? Will they pull a second? Will they do something like that with home equity? I can tell you our industry is really focused on cash out refinances. There are some companies that are having the biggest refinance months they've had in a while, all cash out, which is an interesting thought too.
Interesting.
So that scares me a little bit, and tell me if I shouldn't be, but that reminds me of, our big lending issue that we went through in the 2007, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But is that going to lead to something like that with these people? Because what happens is we don't change our spending habits. And so then we pull money from our homes and then we spend that money like we've always been spending. And then there's no shift or change. And then that leads to problems. So do we need to be talking to our clients about that? I mean, do they need to be educated on that?
I think every client needs to be educated on that. But I think it's more of a conversation with us as loan officers and you guys as realtors. We need to be having better conversations about where people are fiscally, right? Are they doing okay with inflation? Are they managing credit card debt? Do they need other services or help from us? Do they need a budget from us, right? And I don't think we're ever going to change how America spends or budgets their money. I mean, there's people in that space like Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman or those guys that they've been talking about the same budget, the same baby steps, the same things for 30 years. They became millionaires off of it because we don't learn it. And it's hard. It's hard work to do that. Right. So I think it's important to be talking with our homeowners about it. Now, do I think it's going to cause a major issue? I don't believe that'll be the case because ultimately right now, people will look at it and either give up their rate or they're going to wind up declaring bankruptcy and saving the home. The biggest problem right now is it makes sense to be a homeowner. if something was to change where it didn't make sense to be a homeowner, that would change everything. But I don't see that ever happening again with the rates where they were.
Hey, I've got a question. Having reflected on last year's conversation, it was interesting. We were all talking like the recession was a given, like it's here. I think at that recording there was 1 quarter of negative growth. We were expecting the second. Yeah. Where are things sitting there? What are you hearing? You're watching that data closely. What are you seeing going on?
Yeah, so with recession, I think that there's kind of 50-50 mix there. People are still on the train of, hey, we're going to have this huge recession if we're not already in it, right? Because they're kind of moving the goalposts on what recession is and the definition of it. And then, as you start seeing bank failures, you see some of that stuff, those are really good key indicators of recession. The problem now is there's other indicators of non-recession that we're seeing. Like look at jobs, right? They're not at the lowest point, but they're still at like a 40-year low. Jobs are a good indicator of what the economy is doing. Inflation is now starting to come down, even though they've raised interest rates. Those core inflation numbers are starting to come down as well. That becomes really important to us. So the Federal Reserve will continue to raise rates to slow spending because they need to. And I don't know if a recession in our future is going to be something. The question is how big, right? I think it's more how big and when, because we're trending there and the government needs to slow the spending down. Mm-hmm. That includes in housing.
Yeah. I'll tell you what's interesting in looking back, at least in our market, if you would have told me that transactions would have been down 30% this year, but prices are up 13%, I'd be scratching my head saying, how is that possible? And it's just that lack of inventory and still really strong demand, and it's driving things up.
Yeah, if you look at demand, it's at the lowest point that we've seen it since it was since they monitor it, right? So if I would have told you just that one data point and said in 2023 this is what you should expect, there is no way you're thinking prices are up.
Yeah.
It doesn't
supply
make
and demand,
sense.
right?
Yeah.
Typical economics say with no supply and less demand, it doesn't matter because as long as demand is there to meet the supply, it will still go up. And that's the interesting part. We're not building enough homes. There's no way we're going to catch it.
Yeah. And
home ownership is starting to become commodity, right? Think of it that way. I mean, what if home ownership wasn't a home, but it was gold and you no longer produce gold?
Yeah, I love that analogy. And this really drives home the importance of tracking that absorption number like you're doing, Jefi, and that I do, the months of supply, because that tells you where things sit. And especially if you're looking and you don't see a lot of future supply coming in your market. In my market, it's a niche, to have new construction. They're infill lots. So, what do? It's just going to drive prices up.
Yeah. I'd be really interested to know, maybe you guys know this, is the whole country still in this supply and demand position? Or is it coastal? I mean, are we in micro markets that are different? Do any of us know this answer?
I do a little bit. I mean, I do most of them. I do.
Okay.
So the what we're seeing essentially is you're not having what we see in San Diego or other places everywhere. But last month we saw prices rebound a bit more than expected. Like for example, Austin was down. But last month over month, prices jumped over 1%. There's certain pockets that we saw more of a decrease in prices, but then last month they jumped higher than expected, which tells us it's recovering faster because of supply and demand, right? You can look at some of those pockets. So I don't know of anybody that I'm talking to real estate wise that isn't talking about this subject, whether it be Florida, Idaho, Arizona, Texas, right? You think about that. And it is what it is. I just don't see it going away because we're just not building enough homes.
Yeah. I also think people sorry, Ed. I also think that people start getting used to the hot water. I mean, it's the lobster in the pot theory, right? We all get used to the fact that our interest rates are in the 7s and you're like, well, you know what? I need to buy a house. So I thought it was going to go down. It didn't go down. I got to make a decision. I got to make a move. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. So people do start getting used to that. It's just, how do they get into the market? They probably have to buy well below what they thought they could buy is what I'm seeing.
Yeah. And I would say half of our clients from this year are people that we've worked hard to stay in touch with throughout the year,
Yes.
so that they know where rates have been, where they are, and they're kind of going, okay, well, the market didn't crash at 7.5%. We don't see supply coming. Everybody's saying the same thing. We're done renting. We need to buy, and they bought. They wish they would have bought last year. So, the best time to buy is when you can.
Well, and
Yep.
what's crazy is, think about our listings, Jeff. You bring them on and you get this, let's say on average, 7 offers. That's kind of in the average of where it's been for me. And I know you've exceeded that in some areas and been right around that. But you've got the cash offers there. So you've got, on the one side, you've got people that are like, how do I qualify? And they're going through that and getting used to the rate. And then they write their offer and they get beat by a cash offer.
Yeah. And something, in a way, we need to be better for our clients at explaining the difference between a cash offer and a lending offer. Like, we need to be able to have Jeremy or our lenders call and talk to the listing agents and explain how far into the process they are. Maybe we need to get these people fully underwritten so they can compete against cash. Like, this is probably a point that we need to go deeper in on a different podcast, but to be better at representing our clients who have loans.
I love that for a podcast idea. The point I was trying to make on this one is, it speaks a lot to the market about the amount of money that's out there, that, rates are going up. Well, when you have 7 offers and 2 of them are cash, what's that tell you, right? So we're in a really strange spot.
Well, the cash doesn't surprise me, because I think the recent statistics show that 39% of home buyers were baby boomers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the average wealth of a baby boomer, I think it was something like $900,000 as an average. Now, here's the crazy part. As an average, that's the wealth that's there. But the mean, which is the middle between everybody, is like $130,000. There's a huge gap in discrepancy. So the reality of the cash being there is probably in part due to that. People retiring, wanting to move to San Diego or wherever they're going for retirement. A lot of cash floating around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
I don't want it in the market. It's really hard to be there too, right? It's really
Right.
hard.
Well, just saying, my home is one level, perfect for that aging boomer. Bring the cash.
Jeremy's moving to North Carolina.
I'm out of here, people.
Hey guys, we should probably wrap this up. Jeremy, do you want to leave us with anything? We promise not to wait another year to have you on, but anything that you think would be a good nugget to leave our listeners with?
I think that one of the most important things we have to think about as a community, real estate and lending, is trying to make sure we continue to do what's best for our clients. And I know you guys are so good at this, which is why I love being on this. I have never been busier or worked harder in my life than we are right now, but it's not closing loans. It's serving our clients, having really difficult conversations and really helping them through tough spots, because people are struggling out there right now. My heart is loving people, and you guys know that, but there's no better time than right now today to do it. And touching base with people, loving on our clients, they will never forget that kind of stuff. So I would say that's the nugget that I'd love to leave with people, just to go, okay, it's perfect for that. And man, if there's any buyers out there, sellers out there moving around, like, don't be afraid to listen to the market, listen to the pros. And if now's the time, buy a home. There's no better time than now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great, Jeremy. Hey, we appreciate you so much. Ed, did you want to add anything
Yeah, I'm
to
going
that?
to throw one last comment in, and I think it relates. So my most recent buyer, first offer she wrote, she lost to a cash deal, and we rolled up our sleeves and said, okay, how, we just have to do what we have to do, and how do we get you to win? And we did a really good job of working the relationship with the listing agent and writing a really good offer. And we won on the next one. So don't lose hope. You can win in this market. You just need to get out there and do the right things.
Yeah.
I want to be on that podcast too, about making your offers better.
Okay, let's do that.
Let's do it. That's a great one.
I love that. All right, everybody. Signing off here from San Diego, California, and Ed Billings.
We'll see you next time.
In Chapel Hill is what I was trying to get you to say.
Ed Billings in Chapel Hill. I'll see you next time.
All right. And Jeremy's information will be in the show notes. If anybody wants to reach out, he's an incredible source of information, a wealth of information, I like to say.
Right.